Is there any effort to try to deport these massive amounts of Chinese nationals that came here illegally? Are we hearing anything about that? Because I haven't seen much of that. I see a lot of it going, towards the gangbangers and all that other stuff. But are we trying to get the Chinese nationals out of here as well?
I haven't heard of that. And that is something that we really need to do because they actually are more dangerous than MS-13 or any Latin American gang.
All right, let's do it. Joining me now, Gordon Chang. Welcome back to the Alec Lace Show.
Thank you so much, Alec.
It's great to see you again. Let's start right here. What's the current status right now with the trade war, the tariff war? What's the current status right now with what's going on with U.S. and China with the trade war?
We're in the 90-day pause. So the United States and China both reduced their general tariffs rates by 115 percentage points. And now the U.S. general tariff on China is 30%, and the general tariff of China on U.S. goods is 10%. We have additional tariffs, which in some products bring the tariff rate to about 50% or so. At the end of the pause, apparently there's supposed to be a trade deal. President Trump on Monday said that China had agreed to open its economy to American products. We'll see about that. That's a pretty vague promise, and it's a promise that the Chinese have made on a number of different occasions, and they have violated their trade agreements with us all the time. So we'll see.
How is it, Gordon? How is this tariff, this latest? I know the trade war has been going on for a long time here but this piece of it, how is it being viewed in China? Like, how is it being received by the Chinese people? Do they see it as China winning against the U.S. right now and having the upper hand? Do they see them falling behind to the U.S.? How do they see it?
The Chinese see that they've won, that they've basically humiliated President Trump. And it's an affirmation of Xi Jinping's view that China has already surpassed the U.S., far stronger U.S. in terminal decline. I'm not saying that's right. It's not, but that's the way they feel.
Yeah, I would imagine that the propaganda machine must be pumping that out there to the Chinese people. I know that they're pumping that out here. I know just from our mainstream media, they're telling us, the tariffs are terrible. It's bad for the American people. I would imagine the propaganda in China is just the reverse, telling the people, yeah, we're getting the upper hand on them.
Yes. In general, President Trump doesn't think very much about information warfare, but the Chinese do. And right now, it's what he agreed to. I think he sort of felt that he extended a hand to them to prevent them, give them an off ramp to a collision with the United States and the rest of the world. But basically, the Chinese have now become extremely arrogant, much more difficult to deal with. And President Trump now owns this.
Well, how does it seem that we know obviously right now President Trump is over in the Middle East. He's bringing in billions and billions of dollars of investments to the United States. How does that affect China? Is this kind of undermining China, whereas these countries may have been doing this business and investing with China when it comes to certain things, technology, whatever it may be. Now they're investing it with the United States. Does that kind of undercut China?
Oh, it certainly does. This is an historic win for the United States. If we go back about 6 months or so ago, China looked like it was ascendant in the Middle East. In March 2023, they had brokered an agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. July of last year, they had the Beijing Declaration, which was signed on by 14 Palestinian groups. What Trump did in this tour is he showed that the United States is in control. And essentially what he's doing is he's bringing stability to the Middle East. And it's not only all the money that he has got, excuse me, from promised investments, also the agreements to buy Boeing aircraft, buy defense equipment. That's really good. Syria could very well be one of the most important accomplishments of any national leader this century. The reason is that Syria was once a totalitarian hellhole, a failed state. Now the current president of Syria, Ahmed al-Ashara, he is a former militant, but he also is now very pro-American. And President Trump said he's going to drop the sanctions on Syria. This can open the door to American investments, to remaking Syria into an America lookalike in the Middle East. This is really, really important. And Trump is basically shutting the Chinese and the Russians out of the Middle East, and he's making it much more difficult for Iran to take over Syria, which is what Tehran wants to do.
Yeah, and this is the point is that you have like, especially over here, the way that our media looks at it, and you'll hear the undercutting of what the deals that he's getting with Saudi Arabia, or whether it be with Qatar, saying like, oh, these countries they sponsor this terrorist state, or we don't want to deal. They make it sound like we shouldn't be dealing with these countries, but then in the beginning, when Trump was starting the tariffs, they were saying, oh no, because of the tariffs, these countries are going to invest with China now and not the U.S. But now that they're investing with the U.S., they're like all of a sudden like, oh well, we don't really want those countries anyway. So it's like no matter which way he goes, they're going to play the other hand.
Yes, well, unfortunately, both political parties are guilty of undermining American foreign policy. And now, because Trump is in the Oval Office, it's the Democrats' turn to do this. This is particularly misguided, unpatriotic, and neither party should do it. But what Trump is doing right now is historic. Also, we got to remember that during his first term, his accomplishments in the Middle East were historic with the Abraham Accords. And that solidified not only the Middle East, but also North Africa, which is really important for us. So this is a very, very good story for the United States.
And it does seem like the basic message from President Trump is peace, right? It's peace and prosperity. That's what he's bringing to the region, saying, hey, listen, let's try to cut out all this nonsense here. We can all make a ton of money, or we can change this, the direction for this Middle East for decades to come, and we can all have a hand in making our countries wealthy again, and we can all participate in this equally. And it seems like it's peace and prosperity is the big message for Trump in the Middle East.
Yes, we talk about Iran and its nuclear weapons program. One of the ways to stuff Iran back into the box is to solidify our relationships with our traditional friends who are the Sunni in the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia. We're seeing with President Trump's two stopovers in the Persian Gulf, when you have Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. This really gives Iran second thought. So we could very well have a peaceful end to the nuclear weapons program as well, and that would be very good.
Yeah, we know how much Trump really is big on that. Now, how about this, Gordon? As far as China and Taiwan, I know at certain points here, it seemed like China was at the doorstep, ready to invade Taiwan. The signs looked like they were there. Where are we at right now with the relation with China, Taiwan? Do we see some type of escalation there? What's your take on it?
Well, China does a lot of huffing and puffing when it comes to Taiwan and very belligerent military exercises, but I don't think China is ready to start hostilities with an invasion of the main island of Taiwan. And the reason is that Xi Jinping doesn't, I think, control the Chinese military. The Chinese military right now also thinks it's not ready to invade Taiwan, despite all of its recent advances. And the war against Taiwan would be extremely unpopular with the Chinese people who are already very unhappy with the way things are going. It's a long conversation. This is not to say that Taiwan will be safe, because war could easily start in East Asia through other ways, and Taiwan would inevitably become involved. But I don't see China, as I said, starting hostilities with an invasion of the main island.
Well, that's good to hear. And then how about this? Because I know we hear a lot about Trump's, efforts to make mass deportations. He's getting stopped by some of the federal judges. We hear a lot of it about the gang members and stuff like that. But we do know that there was hundreds of thousands of Chinese nationals that came through Biden's open border as well and are here illegally. Is there any effort to try to deport these massive amounts of Chinese nationals that came here illegally? Are we hearing anything about that? Because I haven't seen much of that. I see a lot of it going, towards the gangbangers and all that other stuff. But are we trying to get the Chinese nationals out of here as well?
I haven't heard of that. And that is something that we really need to do because they actually are more dangerous than MS-13 or any Latin American gang. Because I think that they are elements of the Chinese military and perhaps the Ministry of State Security We know that the increased tempo of incursions through our southern and northern borders also coincides with an increased tempo of Chinese attempts to get onto our military bases. There's illegal Chinese surveillance of our facilities and our infrastructure. There's so many signs that China has already laid basically what they're doing is they're looking at our patterns, our vulnerabilities. They've created the infrastructure for an attack on America from American soil. So yes, this is a higher priority.
Yeah, that's why I wonder. Like, I haven't really seen much about it. Not to say that it's not happening. It's just that I haven't seen the reporting on it. And I know that the Chinese seem like they play like a much longer game, a more strategic game than say, the gang cartels that are coming here that were like instant smash and grab type of philosophy when they get here. And it seems like I know. What's your take on these like Chinese birth houses where you have the Chinese women come here 7 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant, have the child here, bring it back to China, raise it, and now it's always going to be able to have a U.S. a birthright citizenship. Is that stuff still going on?
I think it still is going on. That's different and apart from the dangerous migrants. These are people who just want to live in the United States, who want to have the ability to come here. And that shows the enormous attractive power of the United States, even for people who want to live inside China. They realize that they need to have a safe way to get out.
And then just to switch gears on you one more time here, how is the AI development in China versus what we're doing over here? Because it seems like the future, everything AI, Elon Musk all over this thing. He's got cyber robots now. It's like it seems like the AI is coming full force. Where are we in compared to China in this AI race?
We're probably a little bit ahead, but China is closing the gap, and it is a race. Now, AI depends on NVIDIA chips, and we have not been very good in enforcing sanctions on making sure that these chips don't get into China. Our sanctions policy, and this is bipartisan failure. This is Obama. This is Trump first term. This is Biden. We've had sanctions on China, but the sanctions have almost been, from the outside, if you look at it, these sanctions appear designed to fail. We know how sanctions can be effective. You make them comprehensive. You don't announce them beforehand. You really enforce them. And neither of those three presidents followed some very simple rules. So China has a lot of NVIDIA chips. This is on us. This is our failure.
Well, I know that I know you have Nvidia, there's billions of dollars that have been invested now in the US for these chips and for the AI stuff. And it just seems like, it seems like not only is it just for like, however you want to say it, technological events, but also for national security, national defense. It seems like this is going to become the way, not just the way that we maybe drive a car or do our homework, but it's going to also be the way that we defend our country too. So this is a military priority as well, I would imagine.
Absolutely. No question about it, Alec.
Yeah. So, what would you say? I mean, I know this is your field here. What are you watching? What's your key thing you're watching between China and U.S. relations over the next, say, 2, 3 months or so? What are you keying on here? What are you watching for?
I guess two things. One of them is that over the last month, there's been a lot of belligerent Chinese activity against South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Philippines, Australia. And China is doing this, I think, more for show than anything else. But these incidents could actually become major wars. So look at that. And that's true because Xi Jinping has basically configured the Chinese political system so that only the most hostile answers are considered acceptable. Second thing I'm watching is the Chinese economy, which I think has been contracting for a couple months, if not more. The price data from February, March, and April shows that the Chinese economy is in a deflationary spiral. That's inconsistent with these reports of robust growth. So I think that will drive a lot of Chinese behavior, and it could very well mean that the not only is the Chinese economy fragile, but that also the Chinese political system could be fragile because of that.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? So, all right. I know you've got several books out on the issue. You working on anything else? What's coming up next for you? What are you working on this year? You got any books coming out, and where can the people find you?
Um, I don't have books coming out. Things are happening too fast now. I wrote a slim book called Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, which puts a context on all of the news from China, which is a lot of. But people can find me on Twitter or X at GORDONGCHANG. And I archive all my articles for free on my website, which is www.gordonchang.com.
I got the link down below. You're the best in the business. Gordon Chang, always an honor. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time on the Alec Lace Show.
It was an honor for me, Alex. So thank you.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.